We see the Earth from here. We are go.
We see the Earth now.
We see the Earth. And if we look at the Strait of Hormuz,
We see the Earth.
we see 25 nations' fleets massing, the biggest massing ever in the Strait of Hormuz, reported by the Associated Press, London Telegraph. B-1, B-2 bombers have been covertly dispatched. F-18s, F-16s, Warthogs. Looks like a build-up to the last Gulf War going on right now. A lot of top Israeli envoys, it's in Haaretz and other publications, are saying they're waiting till Romney gets in so that they don't have an election to deal with and the strike is on. Others say that they are activating al-Qaeda, the globalist are, to kill the ambassador, to attack embassies, to attack embassies and facilities, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Egypt, Sudan, Libya. It's incredible. And it's a totally schizophrenic policy where the West has put al-Qaeda in to Libya and Syria and other areas publicly. And that's the main force. CFR a month ago said, quote, we need al-Qaeda. They're doing a great job, unifying everybody. They're murdering Christians, murdering Jews, murdering Alawite Muslims, cutting their heads off, throwing them off buildings, desecrating Orthodox churches. We're Paul proselytized. We're seeing all of this, and it's in the back of the news. And now we have the ambassador dead. I had Webster Tarpley, Dr. Tarpley, on yesterday breaking down that he believes it's a October surprise, like the whole hostage things with Carter back in 1979, 1980. Regardless of this, at the top, the same banks run Obama, run Romney, and I'm not going to get in either camp. I'm not going to sit here and get in this election and support either or. I will not be part of this. I will pull back and analyze what's going on, and I agree with Tarpley. This has got neocon fingerprints on it. Neocon groups, the same ones that upload the Adam Gadon fake al-Qaeda videos and the Intel Center video layer caught. The same groups, this FBI informant, producer of anti-Islam, is a Fed snitch, of course. He's just the cutout to take the blame for it. This has got Langley, Virginia written all over it, and that's now even coming out. All of this is happening with the backdrop of QE Unlimited. Now, they promised no QE3, and they said, see, no QE3, we're going to give $85 billion. It's $85 billion a month. $40 billion of it to buy derivatives from bad mortgages, from paper, credit default swaps. Ladies and gentlemen, they're announcing, Barroso last week, that Europe has been conquered. A super federal system is being set up. They designed all this, bankrupting the countries by their operatives, signing them onto the bank's debt, bringing them into a Europe where they have a super federal Europe run by banks. They're announcing global banks have conquered the United States. They have engineered the collapse and are riding the collapse down like Slim Pickens in Dr. Strangelove rides the atomic bomb down, or the hydrogen bomb down over Russia. I mean, this is madness. This is people full of bravado, hubris, chutzpah, whatever you want to call it. This is Hitler turning into Russia, Napoleon turning into Russia, Alexander the Great going to Afghanistan. This is madness. Let me just read a few headlines. We're going to Tarpley, and then for 5 minutes of the next hour, and then Max Kaiser joins us on the economic angle. We're being fed this line of bull by Obama's people that this was not coordinated, and some protesters killed the Navy SEALs and overrun the it's not an embassy, it was a substation. So we've got that going on. We've got Syrian rebels being funded by the West, burning American flags and burning churches down. Headline, Infowars.com, Syrian rebels burn American flag while Obama sends them millions in taxpayer dollars. Ex-envoy to Israel, U.S. will go to war with Iran in 2013. Ynet News. Israel Al-Al stopping flights to Cairo. Increased numbers of foreign element jihadi groups operating in Syria. And I've got it in the stack, 6 different articles we're going to cover, where they say we've got to invade Syria with boots on the ground, NATO does, and bomb them because al-Qaeda is taking over. Man, that's incredible. Our criminal government puts al-Qaeda in publicly, calls them freedom fighters, and then says we got to invade because of al-Qaeda. I mean, this is a new level of order out of chaos, operating on a public in a trance. Leading Sunni clerics demand global ban on insults to Islam. That'll be used to take all our free speech, this whole UN global government plan to ban criticizing any religion. Europe already's done it. We're in trouble, folks. Google takes down our videos for no reason, mildly criticizing government, but is leaving this video up. I'm not saying take it down, but they're already censoring. Unbelievable. This is part of a PSYOP, Google's NSA. That's on record. Iran's Revolutionary Guard commander says its troops are in Syria. That's Reuters. That's been known for months. Now they're just admitting it. Big proxy war. Russian Spetsnaz, Iranian Republican Guard, fighting Al-Qaeda backed with British, U.S., and other special forces. I mean, this is insane. And who did Al-Qaeda kill under orders? They killed the ambassador. Who do they work for? They work for the criminals that run our government. Pakistanis try to storm U.S. outpost, 1 killed. New York Times. Israeli foreign minister, U.S. ignored Arab radicalization. Ignored it. The United States, Israel, and others run the radicalization. Israel created Hamas, 1973. That's on record. Jerusalem Post. U.S. is preparing for a long siege of Arab unrest. New York Times. Head of president of Egypt calls for calm as protests grow. Says they're being funded by the West. No kidding. Israeli leader makes case against Iran on U.S. TV. All of this is designed. Stir the Arabs up, put Al-Qaeda in, get a civil war between Shiite and Sunni going. Just tell the American people, hey, that's Al-Qaeda, that's Iran. When Iran's the opposite of Al-Qaeda, they're Shiite. And then say we got to attack Syria and Iran because Al-Qaeda is there. And it is true Al-Qaeda's in Syria. They're in the news. I'll dig it out of the stack, saying we got to have boots on the ground. Let's cover that first briefly with Webster Tarpley. Then we'll get into the economics. Then we'll tie it all together. But Webster, I understand you were on yesterday and privately told me, yes, we've never been in a greater danger of an Iran attack, first Syria, World War III. But you said, I don't want to really go there because this is being used for political stuff. Let's just be honest, geopolitically, in a brief summation, tying it all together up front. What are we facing right now? How dangerous is this period in the world? What is the overall, in just 2 minutes, method to the mega banks, Anglo-American system program? What is the end game? What do they think they're going to get out of this?
Well, naturally, the war danger has been high and remains high. And I think it focuses in particular on Syria. The Syrian civil war, I guess by now it is a civil war, or really more of an invasion by these Al-Qaeda death squads.
Yeah, proxy NATO, Al-Qaeda destabilization, asymmetrical special forces attack program.
Right. This looks very much like the Spanish Civil War, right? The Spanish Civil War of 1936 to 1939 was the beginning of a clash between Nazi Germany, fascist Italy supporting Franco and his fascists, and then there was the Spanish Republic, which was supported by the Soviets and some others. And you could see that was a kind of a prelude to World War II. And the Spanish Civil War ended in March of 1939, and then World War II began pretty much in September. So the danger is that. However, let's also take a step back. I looked at that article in the Daily Telegraph, and I just had to laugh. When you see a headline that says, British Armada, oh, the British Armada, the massive British naval power in the Gulf. Well, this is a bad joke. The British Armada hasn't been sailing for quite a few centuries, probably World War II.
Probably the point is they massed ships before Gulf I and II. This has been done before.
That's fine. On the other hand, this is ironic. This is a scheduled exercise. This is a drill. Now, nobody knows better than I do that drills go live. On the other hand, the majority of drills do not go live, right? The majority of drills are drills. It's the one that comes along every now and then that goes live that is the one that you have to worry about. But anyway, we have to look at capabilities, right? You can't worry about intentions. You have to look at capabilities, and the capabilities for war are certainly there. It seems to me, again, that this focuses more on Syria in the immediate sense than it does on Iran. If you're going to start a war with Iran, and I think the imperialist planners have seen this for quite a while, you've got to eliminate Syria above all, because Syria is a principal ally, really the only ally of Iran in the Arab world. And you've got to do something about Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is sitting there very close to Israel, and they have built up a tremendous capability with various kinds of missiles, right? They have the the sort of World War II type missiles, but now they've got some pretty
You got to cut off Hezbollah's supply lines from Iran through Syria.
So I think it's less likely that there's going to be a direct attack on Iran until they have been thoroughly isolated. And whether that works or not is now the big question. So it seems to me there's a lot of psychological warfare, and we can't always be preaching, the end of the world for next week. This doesn't work. I would be a little bit skeptical about this hype that we see in the London Daily Telegraph and elsewhere. Because, again, it seems to me that
Webster, let me stop you on that. It was in 2006 or 7 that I disagreed with you when you said the Iran war was on, and I said it wasn't. We had a big fight over that, and I said it wasn't on at that time. You do remember that, correct?
Yes, and I'll tell you what stopped it then was when Putin made his trip to Tehran and got photographed with Ahmadinejad.
Okay, exactly. So my point is we have stopped this from happening. We have stopped this from happening.
We have done something.
Well, no, the American people, yeah.
No, the Russian government, Putin, the main person. The biggest factor for peace in today's world is Putin, and there's no other way to cut it. And don't be embarrassed to say so. You don't have to have provisos about not liking Putin. Like him or hate him, Putin is the big factor for peace because he's the only one who deters the Anglo-Americans. He provides cover for the Chinese, and he allows these other countries to sort of follow along and build up.
Well, sure, and we all know why Putin's involved, because the road to Moscow goes through Damascus and Tehran. We'll be right back. It's all grand chessboard. Stay with us. By the way, Dr. Tarpley is a doctor of history. He's an author, researcher. He has an incredible mind. I'm not trying to get in a fight with him here as we went to break, saying, he's like, hey, let's not say, we're going to have end of the world. I'm not saying that. Then I'm like, hey, Webster, you thought back what was in 2007 that it was imminent going to happen. And it was. And I see the same parallels, but then some. You've got open talk of the Japanese and China heading towards war, says U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. Regardless, that's an amazing headline. You've got Chinese leaders disappearing. You've got coups going on. Zero Hedge has an excellent article we've got up at Infowars.com. A world on the verge. And I'm going to cover this a little bit in the next segment before we get into the economics here. My point is, Webster, the average American isn't even paying attention to what's going on to the point of thinking, oh, we've got to give our rights up Al-Qaeda. And I'm just pointing out Al-Qaeda is this jihadi brigade of the globalists. And I know, of course, you've helped expose that for decades. So I'm just trying to understand here what is going on. Tell us what you think's happening militarily. Are you saying we shouldn't be concerned?
Yes, you have to be concerned. But again, I think it's important to restate the framework also for your radio listeners who might not have heard the conversation yesterday. I would say this is the Romney campaign. In other words, if you want to know who's blowing up the Middle East right now, the Romney campaign is doing that. And the Romney campaign means not some little group of people in Boston who put out press releases and schedule campaign events, but it means this complex of forces, in particular in the intelligence community, that want Romney in and Obama out. And that seems to be the majority of or at least the most active part of the intelligence community. It goes to this CIA Mormon mafia. There's a CIA Mormon mafia, an FBI Mormon mafia. The CIA Mormon mafia would come into it in the following way. The ambassador in Libya, who happened to be at the consulate in Benghazi, or actually at a safe house attached to the consulate in Benghazi, was killed by this group called Ansar al-Sharia, as far as can be told. So Ansar al-Sharia is just the Libyan Islamic fighting group, or Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, under a new name. And the head of that is this guy Kumu. And I wrote about Kumu a year and a half ago. Kumu was part of the Islamic Emirate of Derna. In other words, a terrorist principality that had been created by this guy Hasidi Hassadi Belhaj. All these guys have multiple names. The groups have multiple names. You have to get used to this. They're all moving targets. But this Kumu appears to have given the order, or actually carried it out himself, so that his professionally trained veterans who have been fighting in Libya, a lot of them have been fighting in Syria, they went and killed Ambassador Stevens, not even at the consulate, as I understand it, but at this nearby safe house. Now, Kumu was in Guantanamo for 5 years. He was trained. He was prepared for his new career. The only way you get out of Guantanamo is if you swear that you're going to do what the CIA tells you to do from then on for the rest of your life. And that's what Kumu undoubtedly did.
No, I mean, they've had suicide bombers, everything. They come out of there. They admittedly have a CIA base within the base where they engage, this is even mainstream news, in mind control, drugging. They've got drugs where they can stop your heart and then sit there and have you beg. While, I mean, just incredible what they do.
Right. So if Kumu kills Ambassador Stevens, the question has to go to the CIA, and I would say in particular to the CIA Mormon mafia, the people in the CIA who feel that their careers will be favored by Romney, and they will, because there will be unbelievable Mormon nepotism.
Look, I got to say this, Webster. I want to get into the economy. We covered this for half an hour yesterday. That's fine to get into the Mormon mafia, all this other stuff. But we've already said it.
But this who's doing it.
No,
that's who's doing
I know we covered
see.
it yesterday. I want to get into the economy when we come back. But here's the deal: you were against Obama. Now you're against Romney. How can it's all?
I'm against the ruling class. I'm against the ruling class and their main line. Now, here's the other problem we have. If you want to take power, you need to have a political movement, an independent political movement with a program to take power. If you're not ready to take power, you're automatically reduced to trying to maneuver between 2 or 3 or whatever they are existing alternatives. So we needed to be building an independent alternative over the last couple of years.
That didn't happen.
And it didn't happen. So now we're reduced again to trying to see which is the more dangerous. I would say Romney is the more dangerous at this point simply because he's surrounded by these neocons. He has no clue what he's doing.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's come back. Let's come back. We got to go to break. These are hard breaks. Come back and do 5 minutes on Romney again. But then I really want your take. You're an economist, a good one. I want your take on the QE Unlimited. That's why you're back today. Stay with. Okay, I just wanted to read a few of these headlines before we go back to Webster and he can get into Tarpley. I mean, Tarpley can get into Mitt Romney and what he thinks about that. Even though we covered it yesterday, that's fine. Different audience will cover that. And then we'll get into what I got him on about, the economy and where he sees that going. But world on the verge of war. We've got South Africa shooting people with rubber bullets at miners. We've got Spain, Greece, Portugal have resumed protesting austerity. People are looting grocery stores in Spain. U.S. embassies have been attacked in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Sudan, Lebanon, India, Bangladesh, Indonesia. Pakistan's got different facilities being attacked. Japan is appropriating Chinese contested islands, provoking a firestorm of retaliation, including demands for war with Japan. The Japanese ambassador to China dies mysteriously. Netanyahu's telling Meet the Press Iran will make a nuke in 7 months and must be stopped beforehand. Warships from 25 countries, including the United States, Britain, France, Saudi Arabia, UAE, are launching a military exercise, Strait of Hormuz, pre-planned. Yeah, this whole thing's pre-planned. A third U.S. aircraft carrier, the CVN-74 Stennis carrier, is en route to Iran with ETA of about 10 days. And finally, a potential catalyst to light the whole mess on fire, Iran's Revolutionary Guard announcing that troops are now on the ground in Syria. Tell us something we don't know. And it goes on and on. That's on Infowars.com. A war on the verge in the Middle East? A world on the verge of war? That's the question. All right, Tarpley, you got the floor until we end this hour. Take it away with Romney and what you really think's happening. I respect your view. Doesn't mean I totally agree with it, but it may be the case. The system's certainly starting to turn against Obama at certain levels. And, in the media, normally that's lapdog is like really grilling him on these ridiculous statements that, that a few protesters killed the ambassador and the Navy SEALs. Ambassador Susan Rice, Libya attack not premeditated. What does that mean? Why does the system want Romney in your view? And then please give us your breakdown on where the world financial system is right now and where you see QE going in the future.
Well, the Wall Street establishment, it seems, wants Romney. He's one of them, after all. He's a hedge fund hyena. He's a corporate raider. He's a vulture capitalist, and he's the kind of guy that will not only give them what they want in terms of loot, which Obama has largely done, but he'll also give them the honor in society that Obama can't give them because it would screw up Obama's relations with his own base. They generally object to Obama not so much for what he does, but for what he says, right? Obama's got to cover his left flank by bad-mouthing Wall Street, and they don't want that anymore. They want everything. They want the loot and the honor. They want to be hailed as the saviors of the country. So we've gone through, I think, that without the CIA and without that CIA Mormon mafia, I would strongly guess, you couldn't have Kumu and that group of, let's say, Guantanamo trainees coming to kill the ambassador Stevens in Benghazi. Notice that the extreme reactionaries and neocons are now putting out that the ambassador was homosexual, as if this somehow made this less of a crime. It's a very, very strange thing. So you'd have to look at homophobic forces in the intelligence community. I think it takes us back to precisely that same group. So you mentioned the National Security Agency, or should I say Google. You mentioned Google refusing to take down this stupid, scurrilous film. They have merged practically with the NSA, as you pointed out. And let's not forget, Dan Senior, who is now one of the top advisors to the Romney campaign. Dan Senior is the guy who tells Paul Ryan what to say, what to do on foreign policy. Dan Senior was attached to Google, I think, in a pretty high post. The other side of it that I think is important is, where does this film come from? Forget about Sam Basile. Forget about this character, Nakula. That's the same person, allegedly. This is a little fish. This is some kind of a drug pusher who's gone into a deal with the feds, and he's therefore a controlled witness.
No, he's the classic snitch that they use to put people in prison. He's a classic cutout.
Right, but he's not. This is not the essential person. The person who actually signed for the permit to make the film and put out the casting call and actually had the premises, the studio where this was done, is this other guy, Nasrallah. And Nasrallah is a Coptic Christian. The Christians of Egypt are the Copts, and he's a big Coptic activist. And then we get right to the main issue, which is he's part of this thing called the Islamophobia Network. And this has been written up. There's a study of this by the Center for American Progress. Just look up Islamophobia Network, and you'll get all the names of these people. A lot of people would know Pamela Geller. She's sort of the chairwoman of this thing. It's international. They have Geert Wilders in Holland, a racist politician who just lost the elections at the beginning of last week. And they have something called Stop the Islamization of America, SIOA. And then they have another one called, and this is funny, Stop the Islamization of Nations, SION. So Zion, same difference, I guess. But you can see what this is. This is a group of people, I think, motivated by hatred, right? They're Islamophobic, but they're Islamophobic with a very definite agenda. And one of the people in this group, the thing that makes this most important, is that John Bolton appears at their rallies, right? They had a rally. This was the group that put up a big fight about this mosque near Ground Zero, near the former World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan in August and September of 2010. They were feeling their oats. They had a big conference. Nasrallah was a speaker, the cop who essentially made the movie, and then Ambassador Bolton, right, or Secretary Bolton. Now, Bolton is the guy who would probably be Secretary of State for Romney. So he's meshed with these scurrilous individuals in the Islamophobia network. So I think that's pretty clear, right, that you can look at it and say this movie or trailer or whatever it is a production of the Romney campaign. They did this. And I think it would be important for media to delve into this more, because it's a real scandal. Otherwise, all of the other rioting and stuff is either spontaneous, because there is this capability to get these things going in a spontaneous way, or it's the CIA or British or NATO networks saying let's go out in the streets. Now, a couple of things that could be at work here. Since the person involved making the movie against Muhammad is a Coptic Christian, this sets up something really serious for Egypt, right? Coptic Christians are about 10% of the population of Egypt. If you get some kind of an explosion there, that could become really, really bloody and really, really ugly. And that would destabilize Egypt. That would essentially be a civil war in Egypt. And that may be what these Anglo-American lunatics are looking for. The other thing which I think is extremely important is you have to remember that Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Bahrain and Kuwait and Oman and probably Jordan and Morocco also, the monarchies of the Arab world. These are reactionary monarchies, absolute monarchies, but especially Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and maybe Qatar, but that group, the Gulf, they are on the verge of revolution. And this would be a real revolution. This would not be a fake color revolution, a fake Arab Spring that doesn't change anything.
Sure.
Remember, a revolution means an institutional change. You overthrow a monarchy, that's a revolution. You end slavery, that's a revolution, right? But in this case, they probably have both, right? They have household slavery as well as absolute monarchy. One of the effects of changing the subject is to help the Saudi royal house, frankly. As long as people are running around saying freedom and democracy, human rights, that's really bad for the Saudi monarchy, right? That puts the tremendous pressure on them, as well as on these fakers in Bahrain, right? The royal family there, and then the ones in Qatar, right? Who do Al Jazeera? Al Jazeera, right? Trumpets human rights and democracy to the world, and that's an absolute monarchy with no.
Let me just stop you. And CNN's had their own producers quit and say when they're in Qatar and they're machine gunning men, women, and children, CNN will not let that go on the news with little CIA Anderson Cooper, the twit. But let's just stop. But let me inject this.
To finish the point, just the idea is these countries, these monarchies use anti-Israeli, anti-U.S. as a way to keep themselves in power. In other words, if I'm out there demonstrating against the House of Saud, that's bad for the House of Saud. But what they can say now is go out and demonstrate against the U.S. Of course, go out, those infidels, they're no good. This is a way to relieve the tremendous pressure building up on the Saudi monarchy and these crazy absolute monarchies in these Gulf Emirates.
No, I agree with you. And this is my next point. We've got to get into the economy, Tarpley. I really want to get your take on that, Doc. Is that people ask why the West helped trigger some of the first parts of the Arab Spring. That was because with their Google predictive programming, they admit that they know when dollar devaluation globally causes food prices to go up, where people are making $2 a day on average, and 60% of their money goes to food. You're not just now hungry, you're starving. That's going to cause unrest, so they want to trigger it to try to direct it. And so that's why they've tried to have it be a Sunni-based, Saudi Arabian-backed takeover and have it be sectarian revolution instead of economic revolution. Do you agree with that statement?
I would just correct a couple of things. The reason the price of oil goes up and the reason the price of food goes up is speculation. Which
is dollar devaluation.
No, it's not the same thing. It's direct speculation in these markets using derivatives.
Sure, but the QEs has also made prices go up globally. That's not debated.
Nobody's willing to admit. None of the people writing in these financial newspapers.
Well, I don't care if they don't admit it. There is inflation caused by the monetization of debt.
Yeah, but the main reason those prices are going up is because of credit derivatives and other derivatives that are used.
Yeah, but because dollars aren't worth anything, everybody's rushing into farmland and food and all that. That's also compounding it.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the main thing.
Okay, but listen, let's not argue about little bitty points. Get into the economy. Where is it globally? Okay, go ahead. Where is the economy worldwide right now with this announcement of unlimited QE?
Yeah, again, I think for the average person, a certain amount of inflation is a good thing. I think optimum inflation for the U.S. right now would be 5 to 7%. We've got the American people crushed by $1 trillion of consumer debt, crushed by $1 trillion of.
So you like the Federal Reserve policy of?
No, I just think this emphasis on inflation gets nobody anywhere. This is a sort of an Austrian school red herring.
Well, I agree that it's not going to be that much inflation because the money's being transferred to elites and to buy up bad paper.
It's being hoarded, right? We know there's a capital strike. There's a capital strike where the American corporations are hoarding a couple of $1 trillion, which they refuse to invest. How about a nice tax on undistributed profits to give them
Why don't these crazy corporations invest and get people going? Do they think they're really going to get out of a violent revolution in this country and people rioting? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, they should be investing in productive investment, plant and equipment, new jobs, new technology, but they don't do this. Now, let's look at this QE. You got to imagine the world economy, or let's say the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is the victim of a vampire attack, or we might want to say a zombie attack. And the zombie attack in 2007, 2008, again, was done with derivatives, collateralized debt obligations, credit default swaps, these kinds of things. And this is also what's used to drive up the raw material prices. Since then, we've had Count Dracula has had his fangs in our throat, and he's sucking our blood. And the answer that the Federal Reserve has had is what you'd call a hot money stimulus. And it just says, we're going to flood the banking system with cheap money, 0% in most cases.
All right, Webster, stay there. We got to go to break. It's a hard break. You know you're on the Genesis Network. We got to go to break right here, a network break. We'll be right back with Webster Griffin Tarpley on the other side to break down exactly what's happening with QE Unlimited. He's the vampire slayer. There he is, Von Helsing. Talking about global financial meltdown and possible giant increased wars. The Middle East is already bedlam. Webster, I know you're trying to get out solutions here. And I got to say, if you're going to have quantitative easing, it should go to the states. And it should go to 0% loans to the public instead of foreign banks that have hijacked our country. I mean, what you're saying is true. I cannot disagree with you. You're 100% right. And I want to have you back up. You know, things are so important right now. If you want to come back on, I'm taking off Friday to take my son bird hunting. I promised him forever. But if you'd like to come on sometime next week or maybe even Wednesday or Thursday or something, we'll see. You know, to continue just on solutions. We did that a few weeks ago for an hour and a half. People really enjoyed that talk on InfoWars Nightly News. But I understand you're trying to put out solutions here, but talking to you privately, I mean, I really want your view on this. Geopolitically, where is the world right now? I mean, I see all the parallels everywhere. Everybody's going into conflict because of the economic depression. I mean, where is the world? We are in a global depression, or is it a global recession? And how bad is the danger going into next year? I asked you the time frame on further collapse, and you came up with solutions. Look, I get you want to give us solutions. I want your prognosis on the economy.
The reason I do this is because doomsayers are a dime a dozen, right? Every little newsletter has some prediction of the end of the world.
But you're not a dime a dozen. I want what you think.
People want solutions. That's the whole world history depends on getting out of a depression, and that takes solutions. I would say right now we've got the QE3 from Bernanke coming into play. On the European side, we've got Draghi and his pledge to provide support for Euro bonds. You know, there's always a danger when you go into September, October, and the transition from the third quarter to the fourth quarter, that can always blow up under these depression conditions. But let's just, where are we in a broader sense? You're in this three-part process, right? Depression, dictatorship, world war. And we've got symptoms of all three all around us. It's not coming in a neat, 1, 2, 3. These parts, the phases interpenetrate, unfortunately. So we've got to break out of this. One of the effects of the depression part is that the Anglo-American ruling class is more insane than they usually are, and they're looking for utopian solutions. In particular, I would say the consultative conference, essentially the Friends of Syria that met in Tehran, Iran, about a month ago with 30 countries representing really more than half the world, right? Russia, China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Iran, Syria, all kinds of countries. The isolation of Iran has not worked. And we've just had the non-aligned conference in Tehran with 130, 135 countries coming together in Tehran and talking about world affairs in various ways. The isolation of Iran has not worked. For the Anglo-American ruling class, they would have to say, maybe they've come to the point of diminishing returns with the color revolution strategy. Maybe it's time to go back to the war strategy, the mad dog, neocon, fascist, aggressor stance that we had under Bush Cheney. And again, all those guys are grouped around Obama. They're grouped around Romney.
They're grouped around both of them, bud. It's like a Don King fight.
No. If you look at these individuals, the neocons, the hardcore ideological neocons, they're with Romney, not with Obama. They're not with Obama. Look at them. Again, you got John Bolton, you've got Dan Senior, you've got Robert Kagan, Robert Joseph.
Well, that's what Pachenik says. He says if they get back in, they're going to stage new 9/11s.
Yeah, if Romney comes in on the 20th of January, he may invade Syria on February 1st. I mean, you'll have 100 days of war with Romney. A vote for Romney is a vote for Netanyahu, his bosom buddy since 1976.
All right, we're going to have to talk about this next time, Webster. We'll set you up to break more of this down. Your Skype gets cut out when the music's playing. That's an anomaly. We'll be right back with Max Kaiser. Thank you, Dr. Tarpley.